Every year, thousands of youth leave schools, colleges and universities to join a crowded job market. Approximately 64% of unemployed people in Kenya are youth, estimated to stand at 11 million. Unfortunately, out of these, 92% lack specialized skills and training to participate in the formal labor market. This has led to rising incidences of lawlessness and insecurity. The post-election violence in Kenya of 2007 and 2008 was partly attributed to lack of employment opportunities for the youth. With opportunities for formal employment overstretched, focus has shifted to the micro, small and medium enterprises for the creation of much-needed jobs on a large scale. Despite harsh economic conditions, the informal sector accounts for about 80% of new jobs in Kenya. The public transport sector is an important player in the national economy, moving cargo and millions of workers to their workstations and homes every day.
About 80% of those who are formally employed or working in this country are actually in the informal sector.
We acknowledge that it's an area which is not really well tapped. By given focus and attention and the necessary support, even the legal framework, then I think it's one sector which can grow quite big.
The Matatu industry in particular is the backbone of the public transport sector, providing jobs and livelihoods to over 300,000 people directly and many more indirectly. What's more, the industry has the potential to create many more jobs.
In this country, if there is a sector that needs to be supported and recognized and also people start fighting for it, is the Matatu sector. This industry, in fact, takes care of everybody, even the president. Because somebody who cleans that office uses Matatu. And if he has not been transported to the work, that state house will not get somebody to clean it.
While Matatus provide an essential service to the public, they have also brought untold misery to many families who have lost loved ones through road accidents. 85% of road accidents have been attributed to human error, which includes overworked and fatigued drivers who are likely to exercise wrong judgment on the road. A close examination of the working conditions for Matatu crews points to a situation that calls for urgent intervention.
Sometimes sisi huajiriwa alafu mambo gari inaweza ikaenda ikauzwa ama iharibike. Sasa ukiitiwa kwa gari ingine hauwezi, lazima ufanye hata kama haujiajiriwa huko ndio upate chakula. Huwezi ukagojea mpaka ile gari itoke garage ama bahari iko ndio uendeleze kazi yako.
Long working hours, inadequate compensation, absence of leave days and lack of formalized written employment contracts, health and safety of the workplace are some of the challenges that workers grapple with.
The Matatu sector has not attained growth as it should have. It is because of your indiscipline that you have allowed the traffic department to exist in this country. To be self-disciplined is better than to have somebody following you and ordering you here and there on what to do.
This is despite the fact that laws and regulations that protect workers are entrenched both in the Constitution and in the Kenyan labour laws. These laws are premised on international labour standards. It is for this reason that the International Labour Organization, with financial support from the Norwegian Agency for Development Cooperation, NORAD, initiated the Law Growth Nexus project to advocate for adoption of labour laws in order to create decent employment and equality in the Matatu sector.
When you look at what is in this law, it gives you the freedom to associate and it uncovers the fundamentals rights as enshrined in the International Labour Organization.
The project has managed to bring to the table Matatu owners, drivers and conductors and the government to dialogue on how labour laws can be implemented to transform the sector.
We needed a sector that had a huge potential for employment creation and one where there was a huge deficit of the decent work agenda. And when we went through the various sectors, we realized that the Matatu sector is the one that was the best suited for this kind of project. 99% of the sector stakeholders had no clue that labour laws were applicable to their sectors. They thought they were informal, and meaning that they were below the radar.
Important policy improvements have been realized as a result of this engagement and advocacy, including publication of the National Transport Safety Authority (NTSA) bill, which will require the public service vehicle industry to include labor laws in its operations.
Everybody is happy about it. As I say from the beginning, there was no starting point. Today there is a starting point, and everybody can see it's going to benefit on the whole organization, the whole system.
When we met this organization by the name of ILO, we have already implemented all what the government wanted the industry to implement, and we are now getting the benefit of our work.
These young men, mainly young men and young women involved in the sector, are all contributing to the economy of this great nation, like all other workers. They deserve decent jobs. They deserve to be recognized for their contribution. They deserve to be protected by the law, which is the aspiration of this project.
Moving together with government, we can be able to build on what we have, so that we can see to what extent do we then consolidate the gains we have made in the last few years when this project has been on, and how do we sustain that momentum in terms of moving forward.
The establishment of SACCOs and registered companies to manage public vehicle fleets is a welcome move in measures aimed at reforming the industry. Thanks to this organized setup, formalization of employment for workers is beginning to take root.
We are trying to encourage the SACCO operators to issue written contracts of employment to their workers.
Kuajiriwa na SACCO iko sawa, sababu unajua pia watu wengi waka wanajificha kwa hii kazi ya matatu. Unaweza kukuta mtu ni mharibifu, lakini akienda kwa SACCO kwanza inamchunguza ama ni mtu ako sawa document yake. So kuwa kwa SACCO ni vizuri kuajiriwa na watu wa SACCO kuwa pamoja.
Kama dereva wa matatu ama dereva wote, hatutakuwa tukinyanyaswa na waajiri wetu. Hatutakuwa tukiwanyanyasa waajiri wetu juu kila kitu inaenda na mipangilio.
If adopted, labor laws are an effective way of improving job quality as well as promoting a decent work environment within the Matatu sector and in other micro, small and medium enterprises.
In the informal sector, there's reluctance to know what the law says and to follow it or to regulate it, because there's fear that with regulation comes the added costs imposed by taxation and levies.
The labor laws actually are supposed to apply to both the small and medium enterprises, like they apply to the larger enterprises as it were. But the unfortunate thing has been that in terms of enforcement, we have to be very, very, very careful, particularly when we deal with small enterprises, because most of them will be businesses that are actually or are owned by people who may not have a lot of resources. Therefore, we have to nurture it in such a way that we kind of promote labor law as opposed to enforcement.
To create awareness on labor laws in the Matatu sector, a media campaign dubbed Matatu Poa, Biz Poa was carried out in 2013. Some of the messages highlighted were on safe driving, respect for passengers, insurance, and proper care and maintenance of vehicles. Following the intervention by the Law Growth Nexus project, significant improvements have been witnessed in the Matatu sector. These include simplification of labor laws and significant capacity building for the sector.
I'll tell you, before we began the project, a meeting between the Matatu drivers and conductors and their employers was unheard of. But through the social dialogue initiative, we have actually managed to bring them together on many occasions. They sit and dialogue, they sit and agree how do we take this sector forward, how do we bring reforms to this sector.
This project has been very, very fortunate in that when we started in Kenya, there was already a lot of concern in the minds of a lot of people, both the general public and those in leadership, about the major challenges of the sector. Things like the road carnage, things like the just indiscipline of the sector, etc., etc. So I think our major achievements have been around regulatory reform. Towards the end of 2012, the Traffic Amendment Act was enacted by Parliament, and this act essentially brought compliance with labor law into the Matatu sector.
We have to continue with awareness raising, we have to continue with advocacy, we have to continue with the partnerships so that all the parties can work together. We have to look for ways to mobilize resources to bring these people together.
Matatu industry stakeholders, who have for a long time grappled with the best ways and means of regulating and restructuring a sector beset with so many challenges, now see the law growth nexus intervention as one sure way of opening new horizons for an industry that is crucial to the public and to the development of the nation.
In the ILO, we fully believe that we can achieve the decent work aspiration. We can make decent work happen.
We've managed to really create a sense of empowerment around the sector. There were a lot of players in the sector, and now I'm referring mainly to the workers, the drivers, the conductors, I think, who really thought nobody really cares too much about them.
We would want to be an example within the region of a very organized, predictable transport system, where the owners of the business regulate themselves the way the airline industries regulate themselves.
Everybody in the industry is very happy, including the investors themselves, the drivers, the conductors, and even the passenger themselves, because the whole thing is changing the attitude.
The Federation of Kenya Employers deeply appreciates the introduction of the Law Nexus program by the ILO. It has met a need in the market, and because it was implemented by the social partners, that is, the unions were involved, employers were involved, and so was the government, it has enhanced the spirit of collaboration and social dialogue in resolving issues in a sector that has been pretty problematic for our country.
I would like to see more young women get involved, and I think that will happen when the sector becomes a bit more sane and a bit more orderly and a bit more regulated. But I think more importantly, it is the responsibility of all of us who are involved in working in this sector to make sure that while we keep an eye on the bottom line of the businesses and make sure that they remain profitable, we should also keep an eye on the welfare of the workers involved in this sector, because that way everybody wins.
What we look forward to at the end of the day is ensuring that the Matatu businesses are sustainable and the workers' rights are respected.